Did you ever wonder why some mixes sound warm, rich, and full of life, while others sound flat and dull? The secret lies in one powerful tool, saturation. In this video, I'll break down everything you need to know to master saturation and level up your mixes. So let's not waste any time and get right into it. First up, what actually is saturation? Before I talk like a lot, I'm just gonna show you guys. Right here we have a 3x oscillator just playing a sine wave. Pretty simple, right? We'll be using this sine wave so I can show you guys exactly what saturation does. So this is how the sine wave looks right now. As you can see, we have like at like 60 hertz, at like 140 and like 260-ish. So now I'm gonna open up a saturation plugin. I'm gonna be using JST Heat. As you can see right here, first of all, there's a lot happening, but it is actually not that much happening. So before I explain anything, let me just look at what the saturation plugin is doing. As you can see, saturation plugin is adding frequencies to our sound. These frequencies are called harmonics. So our saturation plugin adds harmonics to our sound. The first important thing to actually know is that there are 4 types of saturation. So we have tube, warm, retro, and tape. The only difference between these is obviously how they work, right? But they add frequencies in different ways, right? So the frequencies all look different right here. They would look different if we had a tape like a saturation, a retro saturation, a tape saturation. That's basically all that saturation does. It adds onto your signal frequencies, harmonics in odd and even numbers. So that's the theory. That's all cool in that, but let's actually get into it and how you can actually use it in your mixes. So let's just go through some of the knobs, you know. So this JST Heat is pretty simple. As you can see right here, we have 3 different areas and that's our frequency band. So this is basically the EQ right here, in right here. And we can actually section off certain parts of the frequency band. So we can do it like this, we can do it like this, doesn't really matter, you know. Each of these sections targets a single frequency band. We can apply saturation to all of these bands separately. This means basically that we can add like a shit ton at the base and we can just keep it very like low at the bottom, you know. Or the other way around, we can also go really crazy in the mids and do nothing at the bottom. But yeah, as you can tell. We can also obviously mute certain sections. And we can solo them. This is mostly used to really like listen in to what you're doing. So we also have this knob right here. If you hover over the tube or like the other thing that's going to stand there, and you can actually put an effect using this, you know, and this is basically your mix knob for each of the sections, you know. And we also have this dB. So this is basically like just like loudness, you know, just gain. So you can actually like turn like a certain section down or up. So that's basically everything that's happening on the top right here. We also have a mix knob right here. That's like for the whole effect. You know, the mix knob is going to come in very handy when we actually use it in practice, because we can actually like go very crazy with the effect and then just level it under our original sound using the mix knob. So we have our gain knobs right here. And now let's get to this part right here, which is the mode. This is the first thing you're going to adjust when actually opening this plugin. This mode is basically just changing out the distortion for you. So we have tube right here. We have distortion plus compression, upward compression, distortion. We have distortion, different kinds of distortion, obviously. Fold back distortion. So these are basically like the different types of saturation that you can get out of this plugin. So coming to the left side of the plugin, right here we have a filter section, so low cut and high cut, and a steep and thumb. This is basically decides how the filter is looking. If I'm not completely mistaken, I could be wrong here. The thumb should look like this, and the steep should look like something like this, you know. But I could be mistaken on that. But it is definitely filter options, you know. You can even say, okay, we kind of can see what kind of filter it is, you know. And if we do thumb. Yeah. So this is our filter section, and the last button that we have, the last 2 buttons that we have is the tone button. This is where you actually decide the tone of your saturation. So it can be bright, it can be dark. So if we listen. So it's really hard to see right now due to just having a sine wave, but it basically shifts the focus of the sound either into the low end or into the higher mids, you know. As you can see right here. So this right here is our main button where we can add saturation to all bands, you know. So we can do this manually inside of like the bands itself, or we can do it to the whole sound. as you can see. And these are basically all the knobs that you're going to find in a saturation plugin. Most of the time, you're going to have these bands. You're going to have the option to change what kind of saturation, so tube, tape, warm, and retro, and maybe like a combination of two. You're going to have filter settings, mix knobs, and that's basically it. So now that we actually know what all these buttons do, when can we actually use saturation? When does it make sense? And what is like the benefit we gain of it? JST actually heard about Project One and decided to throw in 12 of their plugins in for free. So if that sounds interesting to you, because it definitely is, check the first link in the description to get more information, learn more. So this use case right here is a very simple one. I wanted to get like very distorted drums, just like Kanye inspired, and saturation is how I got there. If I play the drums without saturation, they sound like this. And with saturation, very like blown out, very distorted. That is just a simple, very obvious use case of saturation. I actually did the same thing right here, just with a bass. I used the decapitator this time, and this is what the bass sounded before. As you can tell, I added a lot more higher frequencies using the decapitator, so saturation. So that's like one of the use cases. A couple easy use cases for saturation that are more on the extreme side that you can instantly tell that saturation is on there is guitars. Guitars is probably the most used instrument for saturation. You can also do it on digital leads like this. This sounds very clean and sterile, and as soon as I add the saturation, adding these harmonics is gonna give it a much more like authentic feel to it. This is obviously very gritty and crunchy, but that was obviously the sound I was going for here, if you listen to the whole sample. So with guitars, leads, basses, drums, these are all like very obvious use cases for saturation. So if you're going for like a very distorted sound or like a very gritty sound and your sound is missing that grit, that's when saturation can come in handy. So that's the extreme side, the obvious side. For the more subtle use cases is like a drum bass, a melody bass. So if you have a drum bass like this, and you just want to make it a little bit more gritty, this is also where saturation can come in handy. If we open JST Heat again, as you can tell, the effect is very, very present. This is now where we can level the effect under our OG sound. So if we just play it again. Oh, wait, this is kind of cool. Wait. We could actually very like accentuate this effect. And just layer it under. And we can do this for melody buses as well as for, or like even single like melody sounds. So if you have like a lead, or if you have chords that you want to like saturate, you can do this with them the same way you can do it with this drum bass right here. So let's say you have drums and you're just missing the grit. Saturation might be the way to go for you, you know? Another very cool use case is actually using the saturation to get like a warm, fuzzy feeling on even a master, you know? So this like right here is a song I've been working on. If we listen to like the beginning of it. If you want to make this feel a little more alive and a little more like fuzzy, a little bit more warm, then using saturation like this can be like a huge difference maker. If we just take a listen real quick without. It is instantly like much thicker because I added saturation in the mids and in the lows. I didn't do anything on the highs. But I even like took away dB in the mids a little bit, even though it's just very slight. But I just added some very just a touch, as you can see, in saturation, and it already gives you like much rounder final mix, you know. And this is just another use case of saturation. It's actually just putting on a master. You don't want to do too much. This is the master, you know, so you gotta be very careful to make the whole thing feel a little bit rounder, a little bit warmer. I even played with the mix. I think the difference is very obvious. But yeah, these are some of my favorite use cases when actually working with saturation. Just to recap really quickly. Saturation basically adds to your sound. It adds harmonics to your sound, which in turn can make it sound warmer and more alive. Some use cases for saturation can vary like a lot. You have more obvious ones, like on the drums I showed you, where you really want to like crank it up to 11 and you want it to be like super distorted and like super out there. That's one. You can do it on guitars. Like guitars is the most used instrument with saturation for 100%. You can also do it just a little bit less obvious. You can add it to a drum bass to like add some grit under your drums, give them a little more, you know, good stuff of that grit. You can do the same with melodies. You can do it with leads to give it a little bit of a warm feeling. And you can add it to like basses, masters, to everything basically. And just do it very slight and just give the whole thing like a more round feeling. So yeah, that is pretty much everything you have to know about saturation. If you're interested in JST Heat and the other 12 free plugins JST put into Project One, click the first link in the description for more information. And if you need help or you have some like video ideas or something that you would like me to cover, comment down below and I'll check that out. Peace out. See you in the next one.